Hello again, and welcome to the Kit Locker, a podcast of Black Site Media, and we're continuing with now the fourth part of our review of reference pictures of the SAS's SP team during the mid-1980s. This is a picture that was taken as part of a reconstruction of events at the Iranian embassy in 1980, but taken somewhat later in the early 80s, possibly around 1983 again, the period that we saw and discussed where Princess Diana and Prince Charles were attending for hostage rescue familiarization exercises. This is the period again of the shiny assault suits, what I think are fluorocarbon suits made by a company called Beacon, a pattern of suit, as I say, that's rare to come across nowadays, and I suppose relatively short-lived. There do seem to be some shortcomings with the suit in terms of the fit, particularly of things like the hood, which in a lot of pictures seems to leave a bit of a gap just at the kind of jawline where the respirator is coming down over the face. It doesn't quite. The hoods have never quite fit on these particular suits, not particularly well. You can see the MP5 has the top-mounted Streamlight, S6 respirator, Mark II vest, Len Dixon belt equipment, and this, I was told, was taken in a large house near Hereford. You can see it's probably a fairly substantial kind of house, maybe a stately home of some kind, and these were pictures for a reconstruction of events at the Iranian embassy that were being used for painting or paintings that were being made of the events. As you can see here, the incident where a terrorist was sighted coming down the stairs of the Iranian embassy and was thrown into the lobby, where he was dispatched during the course of that operation. An interesting series here of some pictures that have been around for quite a long time and have never been, again, conclusively identified in terms of time period, although there are some things that we can tell. Once again, this must be around 1986 or after, because of the S-series respirators that are being used, and before the introduction of the SIG 226. So again, around 1986 is the likely period for this picture. Interestingly, you can see an MP5K being used by the man in the foreground there, and it's a variant which comes without the front circular iron sight and comes with a sight notch instead. So it's designed to be a little bit more low profile, so it doesn't snag on equipment when it's being brought up from the side to bear on a target. This chap, you can also see, is wearing a variant Bristol body armour vest, which again may indicate that there is possibly a mix of equipment in use at this time. And this chap is wearing a Bristol pattern vest which has equipment attachment loops at the front, rather similar to the Molly system that came to be in use later on by forces like the US. And you can see also that he's got leather belt kit on, and again the pistol, the Browning high power, on the chap in the background there, secured by a retention lanyard to his belt. You can also see on the left thigh of the man in the foreground, he has an elasticated magazine retention pouch for pistol magazines. Again, looks to be the Len Dixon variety, which didn't come with a retention cup at the bottom to secure the magazine. You just slotted the magazines into the very strong elastic retaining straps. Another feature here is the respirators have anti-flash lenses on them. These were available, very familiar to collectors, often seen as quite a desirable item to have. They sort of look cool, but they obviously have a practical function of giving some degree of eye protection from the magnesium flash of stun grenades, distraction grenades. One other thing about the respirator is the canister featured on the respirator is a transitional type of canister called an L10 canister. The later canisters that you see in use with the S10, the big fat nuclear, biological and chemical canisters, were all plastic, but this was a a composite plastic and aluminium type of canister that was used in transition in the mid-80s. And you see these very rarely come up in collectors' terms, and they have probably faded out of use by about 1987, 1988, although some do kick around in the stores for a period after that, and you can see them in use as late possibly as the early 2000s. There would just be a bunch of these in stores that perhaps were just used for training. Other than that, this picture is congruent with a series of these pictures that appear to be taking place on the CQB range in the Killing House. Again, distinct because of the red ballistic rubber that you see on the walls behind. This next picture has a chap who is not wearing a respirator. He's got what looks to be a Nomex balaclava on, possibly a 3-hole balaclava, something that was also favoured by the Metropolitan Police firearms units later on. You can see he's got a fairly sturdy belt on there. Again, it could be a Paul Evers or a Len Dixon belt. Typical, what I believe they call a Type 47 Special Forces belt. It could have a metal buckle or it could have a Velcro closure. And the MP5 there doesn't have any weapon illumination system on it. It's just a plain old MP5. And he's wearing the aircrew gloves, the green aircrew gloves which we've seen. Another picture of the same setups in the CQB range, the Killing House. These two chaps here. Again, the distinctive things are the Bristol body armour on the man to the right here, and the MP5 magazine pouches on the legs. They are the leather cup variety I mentioned previously, where the retention mechanism is not elastic but a steel spring inside the pouch, which by force of pressure keeps the magazine firmly in place. And again, assault suits of a NATO stock number type, it appears, but doesn't appear to have the slot for the ID tag on the arm. So again, that may be a transitional piece of uniform there before we see the GD Specialist supply suit. Another picture of these two chaps again from a slightly different angle and rotation. One of the things about this picture that you can see is that the man on the right of the picture, on his belt kit, it's a little indistinct in this picture, but just in front of his holster you can see what appears to be an aircrew knife patch, which has been mounted on the belt and on the leg strap of the pistol holster so that an aircrew knife can be carried on the leg. Now, I've seen this in one or two pictures, and again, it's an option that I suppose a trooper could choose to adopt. For what purpose? Again, well, the knife, as we've seen previously in our main videos, could be used for cutting straps, cutting ropes, or cutting things like plastic cuffs for securing hostages or suspect terrorists. Another picture in the sequence in the CQB range here, a chap on his knees in the front there, possibly illustrating what's called a stoppage drill, where if your primary weapon, your MP5, has stopped firing, a weapon malfunction of some kind, a stoppage, the protocol is to put the weapon out of the way and draw your sidearm, having dropped to your knee first to be out of the line of fire of your colleagues, who will move up behind you while you continue firing with your sidearm until such time as you've either cleared your weapon stoppage, and then you can proceed to return to the upright position. There'll be a specific drill and technique to do so safely in the course of close quarter room combat, which of course has a 360-degree arc of fire, presenting a problem if people are bobbing up and down without warning. You can see on the MP5, the chap in the rear there has the Heckler & Koch mag clamp, so that he's got 2 magazines ready there, the one in the weapon and the one by the side, should it be needed for a magazine change. A further picture in this sequence, again showing a bit more clearly now that the aircrew knife on this chap's belt is attached just in front of his holster, and you can get a bit more definition on that. The leg straps being the kinds of webbing leg straps that come with Len Dixon belt equipment, so it suggests that period where they're still using the Browning high power and the Len Dixon belt kit. And the next picture further along, similarly as before, with the balaclava, no respirator being used, pistol on a retention lanyard, and you can see the condition of the CQB range is fairly basic. Ballistic rubber on the walls, bare floorboards, mobile adjustable walls, doorways made out of plywood presumably, in order to create different kinds of floor space, scenarios, settings, rooms, etc., which can be adjusted and used for creating entry drill settings. The boots he's wearing here, not completely clear, but it suggests he may be wearing a pair of the so-called GSG9 boots. I'm only judging that by the tread pattern, which appears to be matching that, but it's not completely clear from the pictures. As is so often with reference pictures, you never get a completely clear view. And that concludes our look at this equipment from the mid-1980s. Reference pictures, again, always essential to try and pin down these little variations and changes of kit that occur over time. Thanks very much for joining us on The Kit Locker, a podcast of Black Site Media, and we'll look forward to seeing you for the next video.